Welcome to Swami Reacts. 2 weeks ago, in my reaction to Unbroken, we looked at the resilience of a whole family going through war and suffering in the Holocaust. And today I'd like to continue walking this thread, not just thematically, but even existentially. We'll go deeper into the terrain of Auschwitz and extended experiences into questions that theology still struggles to answer. Where was God? What becomes of a soul when his childhood is a concentration camp? How do you reveal trust, hope, identity? The field is the Windermere Children. But don't let the title fool you. This is not a gentle British countryside story. This is about post-traumatic resurrection. It is about children, which are barely teens actually, who had only known life inside death camps. Try to imagine that. And what's the recovery and what's all that really means. So fasten your seatbelt. It's a beautiful but intense journey. The film begins after the war has ended, World War II has ended. A group of 300 Jewish children, all survivors of the camps, arrive in the UK. Beautiful setting, beautiful place, and they are sent to this gorgeous, again, countryside shelter and stayed in Windermere for 4 months of recovery. Of course, 4 months is nothing in one sense from all that they've gone through. But that's all that they can handle. The government is giving support for that time for them to recover. But of course, you may wonder, what does even recovery even mean when you were raised inside genocide? Because we speak about recovery in terms of certain situations we used to know. But what in this context? These were not just children, they were post-humanized beings, let's put it that way. They were robbed of innocence, taught to survive by distrust, silence, hunger. That was their only point of reference for many of them. Many of them were infants, some of them were teenagers. So suddenly they arrived to this beautiful setting. They arrived to comfort, but they are still expecting torture. They see food, but they are waiting for punishment. They meet kindness, but they are still waiting for cruelty. So the film gives us a visceral entry, of course, into what we now know as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. But again, this is a term that was coined in the 80s, but as we can see, this existed way before that. This is a very specific type of PTSD. Of course, I'm familiar with films about the Holocaust. As I mentioned, I'm fascinated with them, but I never considered this particular perspective. Childhood PTSD of those survivors who were children surviving the Holocaust, but who never had any other point of reference before that. So it's a kind of childhood PTSD. It's almost mythic in its depth. Again, these were not soldiers returning home. These were children who never had a home. Their home was a concentration camp home. The camps were their normal, the standard. So I would like to share a few scenes without hopefully spoiling the whole experience for those of you who have not watched it yet. But for example, the first meal scene is, for me, unforgettable. The boys are given fresh baked bread, and there is the person who is in charge of the project, who is taking care of them, giving like a welcome speech. And he's speaking for a few minutes, and the bread is served, and you can see all the kids looking at the bread, and the other guy keeps speaking, and they are just like looking at the bread and thinking like, why he continues to talk so much. And then someone tells the person, maybe it's better for the rabbi who was there as part of the team to give the blessing, so they start eating. So the rabbi starts to mention the first 2-3 words, offering the blessing, but before he finishes, the children grab as much bread as they can and run to their rooms. Why? Of course, because they don't believe this is real. Still, this is not happening yet for them. They cannot fully take it in. So they don't believe it's real. Their instincts are screaming. Store it, not the bread. Store it before someone steals it. Eat it before someone kills you. So much survival instincts on the surface. And then another moment when they are told, each of you will have your own room. And you can see the shock in their faces. Imagine sharing space with death, with other people, but with death for years, as they did in the concentration camps, sleeping on wooden planks, stacked like meat, barely breathing, fearing the night, what will happen at the next moment, what to speak of the next day. And suddenly you're given a door, you're given a window, a bed, even a name. In fact, at one point of the movie, someone asked one of the boys, "Who are you?" And he didn't reply by saying his name. He showed his arm and showed the number he had from the concentration camp branded on his arm. That was his sense of identity. So again, powerful scenes like that. Another powerful scene that comes to mind is the art therapy segment. There was a lady who was a teacher trying to, as part of the team, to accompany these kids. So there was art therapy, drawing as a part of unpacking one's unconscious. So she was inviting the boys to draw whatever they want, no rules, nothing, just unpack. So at first she could see of course, that these little ones could draw was whatever was haunting their memory. It seems from the barbed wires and the concentration camps and loneliness, and mostly the only colors they could use was black, gray, red, only barbed wires again, fire, faces in despair, no green, no hope, no blue, no sky, no yellow, no sun, no green, no blue, no yellow, no sky, no hope, no sun, just red, black, gray, barbed wires, fire, screaming faces. Again, it's not that they were remembering Auschwitz, it's that Auschwitz became their lens, right, through which they were perceiving reality so far. But interestingly, something gradually begins to shift. There is a happy end to the story. So gradually transformation, healing, integration, belonging starts to happen gradually. But one more scene that comes to mind, maybe I would like to share with you is, and it's a very interesting one, in my opinion, that deserves to be in the annals of spiritual cinema, which is a boy who just arrived at the place, haunted, triggered. When the bus arrived at the place, he was the one who didn't want to go down the bus. He didn't want to leave the seat. But suddenly he's able to leave the bus. He spends 1-2 days, and at one point he suddenly runs into the forest. No, this is a countryside setting. And at first, if you are watching that, it feels like escape attempt, right? But then he realizes, oh, there is no fence. There's no walls. There's no barbed wires. He runs further. Again, no guards, no guns, no shouting, no torture, not dead bodies. Still no fence. He runs further and further. And then at one point he stops with a big smile and sign of relief. He starts to breathe, finally. And for the first time in the film, he looks up. Sky is open, sun is shining, space is endless. So he realized there are no limits. I can continue running. I'm free. He finally gets to this point of realizing, I'm free. This is the beginning of what our tradition will call Vaikuntha, right? It's a name that we give to the spiritual world. Vaikuntha means no limits, no fear, but another interpretation is no limits. So in other words, there's no fear because there are no limits. So when you realize, oh, I can continue running, I'm free, and there are no limits, there's no fear. So that was a very powerful, relatable scene. And again, this is not just physical freedom. It's the seed of internal spaciousness entering to the heart of this boy. It is the sacred moment when the soul is realizing, oh, maybe I'm not trapped anymore. How do you relate to that? Because again, this is not only limited to the boys, post-Holocaust boys, it's for all of us. Another scene that comes to my mind that I like to share is a powerful moment when the children are asked to burn their old clothes, which are lice infested from the camp, and are eventually given new ones. So what unfolds is not just hygiene, not cleanliness. It's a quiet rebirth. So you can see their joy, their laughter when the car comes with the new clothes, the way they admire themselves in fresh clothes. It all speaks of a new identity beginning from them, for them, a new sense of self gradually forming, blossoming after years of wearing, again, death. Mhm. They are now clothed in possibility, in prospect, in potential. So again, it's a small outward change. We are not these bodies, we are not these clothes, but in a particular situation like that, inwardly, it feels like the whole self is being filled with hope and possibility. Mhm. And probably one last thing that I would like to share with you, and this, in my case, it was the most impactful and probably the most unexpected message coming at almost the end of the film. And it's after these 4 months of considerable healing and recovery. Again, as much as we can call recovery, how much you can recover for years of the Holocaust in 4 months. But a lot has happened in that brief period. So at the end of that period, the children are notified that, okay, we cannot keep this place anymore. We have to leave Windermere. The government support ends there. So their mentor, the person in charge of the project, the person who loved these kids, who cared for them, who protected them, who fed them, he's gathering them for one last talk, the Last Supper, so to say. And at one point of the conversation of what he's saying, his sermon, if you will, he's saying, because you have suffered so much, there's a danger that you may feel entitled by your suffering. So don't let that define you. Don't demand everything from the world because of it. You have to earn things. So not that, of course, is daring, but it works. No, it works. Why? It's not insensitive. It's not cruel. Because who is saying that? Only someone who has fed them, cry with them, held them within their nightmares, because they were having nightmares over and over again. Only someone who has been with them all along has the right to say that. And in that case, that will be empowering. It's only after safety, after love, after validation, after unconditional presence and embrace that we can say to the other person, you are more than your wound. Don't over identify with that. You are not just a victim. You are a victim, but you are not just a victim. You are a survivor. And more than that, you are a hero in the making. That's ideal sequence of developing a more ultimate sense of self. And so this line for me was a sermon, very powerful. Not to forget suffering, of course, but not to become suffering. Again, despite any of us may have gone through a Holocaust, this is a message for each one of us. How we deal with our own trauma, our own abuse, our own Holocaust, our own suffering, how not to end up being, as the drama triangle calls it, right? That's the real arc of the film. Not to become a victim and only a victim and let that define you. Yeah, victim, someone trapped in past horror. Something happened to you, but do not stay there forever. From victim, you can upgrade your condition to a survivor, beginning to see a self beyond the trauma. Okay, trauma is there, but my whole self is not only that. And then hero, finally, the ideal culmination. Despite all that happened, I'm choosing to love again. I'm choosing to hope again, to open my heart again. Even if it will be easier, quote unquote, to stay numb. So it's beautiful. At the end of the movie, at the end of the film gives us the real names, and the names and the faces and the life stories of the ones who still are alive. So that's also ends up on a very sweet note. Many of them became healers themselves, community builders, not just rebuilding their life, but rebuilding trust in life itself. So it was very moving film, to be honest. Again, going back to these ideas, the moment that the child realized, okay, the barbed wire is gone. The touch of a hand offering bread to me without conditions is coming. Oh, The courage to start to draw again with green and blue and yellow, the colors of light and hope. Again, they needed, maybe they didn't need answers at that moment. What they needed was real presence, people who care for them. And these boys received that from their caretakers. And that's how they were able not only to survive, but to thrive. And that's for me what the film gives, actually. The sacredness of being seen, of being held, and slowly revealed. And again, for me, that's why it's so important, this emphasis on unconditional love. We are already seen, we are already loved, we are already accepted by the divine, and by not only the divine. And on that bedrock, we can heal, we can grow, we can dare to hope again, dare to love again. So as you can see, hopefully this is not just a movie, it's a meditation. And that's why I'm speaking about movies in this series, just hopefully to show how a movie can become meditation, a movie can become prayer, a movie can become sermon. A movie is storytelling, and storytelling is how we make sense of life, make meaning out of reality. So it's a deep, real life-based testimony, even a theological invitation, I will say. So, to anyone who has ever been broken, raise your hands with me, and is trying to believe again, raise your hands with me. The Windermere Children is for you, for sure. So let me know in the comment section what this story awakens in you, which reflections, with emotions, with feelings. What is your own journey from confinement to space? What are the barbed wires that still define your sky? Which are the colors through which you choose to draw and depict, portray your prospect? Please drop your reflections below in the comment section. Do yourself a favor, watch your film, watch this film, share it with others, and share this episode if you feel inspired with someone that may need some healing in this connection. So deep gratitude for your presence and attention. See you in our next episode of Swami Reacts.